Hello, welcome to Curmudgeon in the Cellar, number 34. And my name's Tim, and I'm the Curmudgeon. Bunch of things to talk about tonight. I can't wait. Let's see, where will we start? All right, first off, we talked about sandtables last episode. I came up with an idea. Well, actually, the idea was inspired by a bunch of guys I met several years ago at Gen Con. A bunch of buddies that played together for many years. They call themselves the Silver Boulets. And they've given me a couple of really nice T-shirts over the years. And the one that inspired this on the back had a picture of a boulet in a child's sandbox saying, "This is Daddy's sandbox." Well, here's the thing. Make your child a sandbox. Not the kind of sandbox I had when I was a kid, down on the ground, where the bottom eventually rots and becomes one with the soil. And every neighborhood cat's in there pooping. All right, not that kind. Do one like on the principle of the train tables you see for those fancy wooden trains for the small children to play with, on legs. Put it up. Well, put it up at a height where your child can reach halfway in. Sound familiar? Okay. And put it on legs, make a cover. And when Daddy wants to borrow the sandbox, you have a small sand table at your disposal. And because it's up on legs, you could even make other legs or even put those legs up on blocks and raise it up to where the grown-ups can play with it for a while. Stealth, I call it my stealth sand table. Think about it. Probably a quick project. Next, okay. Music to game by. I'll be the first to admit I have several artists that I liked to play while we used to play, particularly while we were gaming. There's a composer, artist, instrumentalist named Bo Hansen that has several albums of instrumental music that are quite tasty in the background, to be playing softly in the background when you're adventuring. There's another Andreas Vollenweider, plays an electric flute or electric harp. I don't know. He has some great instrumental stuff that we listen to quite a lot. And then I got something. I got contacted on Facebook by an organization, group of people that go by the name of the Bards of Greyhawk. And they wondered if I'd be interested in listening to their music and tell them what I thought of it. Well, I'm certainly not a music critic. I can't carry a tune in a pail. I know what I like. And so I said, yeah, okay. But the link wouldn't work for me, whatever. So they sent me the CD. There it is. Got to get the glare off. Oh, no, this way. It's called Bards of Greyhawk. So it came. I listened. I liked it. I think it's very interesting. Before I talk any more about this, there's one other recent person who did a Kickstarter for the adventuring music called Gil, G-I-L, Luna, L-U-N-A, like the moon. These guys, however, call themselves the Bards of Greyhawk, and they have a second CD in production. Generally, all right, if you noticed earlier when I prefaced this, began this topic, I mentioned the word softly playing in the background. Well, this music is not meant to be played softly in the background sometimes. It can be after you've heard it a few times, but the music's interesting enough that it almost becomes a distraction at a couple of points, because you're going to stop and listen to this good music going on. So, you know, I like it. I'm going to listen to it some more, whether I'm gaming or not. Everybody that's followed me knows I like Dan the Bard. Well, Dan the Bard isn't stuff to game by. It's unless you're planning on listening to it and not gaming, because it's fun. It's his success is in the writing and the skills he has on the lute. This is a group of musicians. I should put on. I should read here. There's a tremendous list of people that they thank. The cover is by Jeff D, as I believe. Yeah, I believe it is. Oh, well, they have the Bards of Greyhawk would like to extend very special thanks to the following: Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson for creating adventure for millions, Gary Gygax Jr., Luke Gygax, Tim Cass, Jeff D., Alan Hammock, Lawrence Schick, David Zeb Cook, Mike Carr, Gary. I think that's a mistake. They got Gary Sutherland here. I bet they meant Dave. Tom Moldvay, Harold Johnson, Errol Otis, Bill Willingham, Ann Meyer, Joseph Garcia, Kristen Uline, Lee Brenmeister, Justin. Lots of people in there. That's quite a list. I'm feeling honored to be on it. Some of those names. So anyway, check it out. They've got a website, bardsofgreyhawk.com. And I'll bet they even probably got sample links you can listen to. But it's fun. It's interesting. And I encourage stuff that is not straight gameplay. I love seeing this spillover. All right. Recently, there was a thread on Facebook. A DM was talking about a couple of players in his campaign who had to try every drug that their player characters found and act all gorked out and whatever. Now, I cannot, in any honesty, look at you and say, ooh, drugs are bad. All right. We all know my reputation, me and Willie Nelson, to be great buddies. But in any event, why have it in the campaign if it's a problem? Why did it end up why was it in the campaign in the first place? There's these, I know there's two schools of thought, and I'm firmly in one camp of, hey, let's have fun and loosey-goosey and whatever. And there's other people who see the rules as a dictum and a way to live their life and play the game and strive and compete and, pardon me, whatever. And okay, that's okay. You know, if that's your bag. In mine, I don't think it would even. Oh, I might put something in a potion that's going to make somebody goofy, or I wrote an adventure where there were different kinds of honey produced by different kinds of bees that had harmful effects, good effects, and erratic effects. And so there's some sampling, and there's, and okay, and they determine what it is. I don't understand. I'll simply say this: I would not introduce something like that in any depth or detail. Pretty soon, enterprising player characters are going to have their enthralled gnomes cooking up meth. No. I have had adventures where they were trying to seek the return of the last known barrel of long bottom leaf. Okay, it wasn't about breaking it into, smoking it, and getting all stoned out and letting the dragon eat you while you were high or anything like that. So I'm not saying that I don't and I don't expect anybody else to eschew completely. If they do, fine, but it's not a problem if they don't. But how would I handle a couple players like that if I found it was annoying, and particularly if the other player characters, or if the other players were also finding annoying? Well, I'll tell you a true story. When I was in the military, I was in from 67 to 71. Shortly before I went overseas in 1969, a friend of mine got busted by CIS, it was called Criminal Investigation Service at the time. Now it's a TV show called NCIS. But anyway, he got popped, and he had just taken a really large dose of acid. He was a California surfer dude, and he had the longest thumbnails on any human being I ever saw. Not actually, but they had these very long thumbnails. It's a good thing. Pardon me. He was apprehended shortly after he dropped a bunch of acid and put into a small holding cell, and never, to my knowledge, never really came out of it. And as far as, when I got out of the service in 1971, he was still sitting in a room, padded room somewhere, peeling oranges with that long thumbnail and eating oranges. So having seen that, heavy stuff always, I was always at arm's length. However, if I had a couple of players that were doing this kind of stuff, well, hey, sorry, you just kind of gorked out, and I guess you're going to have to roll up new players, because these guys are in straitjackets in a lunatic asylum somewhere, or hanging from a tree by the village that thought they were some kind of lunatic when they came running in, foaming at the mouth, telling about the green butterflies that were chasing them. Problem solved. Of course, that's draconian, yes. Final, yes. Lesson learned, I hope. But why would you put anything into a campaign that is likely to be controversial? It's fantasy. Aren't we escaping some of that stuff? We certainly aren't racist and bigot in gaming. Can't possibly be when we can, when our PCs are consorting with all manner of races and what have you. Why put it in if you don't need to? Somebody said something about there seems to be a lot fewer conventions today. Okay, well, let's look at one of the definitions of the word convention, and that's when a meeting, a convening of a meeting or a gathering. And yeah, back in the day, there were gazillions of little cons. A gaming group at a college would get permission from the college to get a hall, big hall, all the rooms in a wing or whatever for a weekend. And the local store or two would come up, a chance to get some concentrated gamers. And maybe they'd get 100, 150 gamers. It's odd. Back when there were fewer gamers, there were lots more conventions. By how you define convention, at what size level does it become a convention? 40, 75, 125? Okay. Back in 1974 and 1975, when I went to the first Gen Cons that I attended, I doubt that there were 2,000 people there. I know that after 1975, when I went to work there, we used to fudge our numbers, just like Origins fudged their numbers. We would count total attendances as opposed to how many people paid. So if they paid for 3 days, they counted as 3, and the other guys were doing it too. But those early little cons were gaming was in its nascent blooming pre-bloom stage, and gamers were reaching out and finding each other. It happened in the college I was at. Shortly after I got there, we were having an activity fair, and when I found out what it was a chance to get a table, and incoming students could go through and sign up with Greek organizations or volunteer organizations, or clubs were there. So I said, well, okay, no game club. There was about 10 or 12 of us at the time, and big university. And I said, well, we need to be here. So we actually, we finalized our name, Southern Illinois University Strategic Game Society, SIUSGS. And I created a logo with press type, and we printed up some flyers, and we put a table in, and we ran a mock battle, a miniatures battle, because colorful plated soldiers, etc. It's a real eye catcher. And so you wouldn't want to run a flat board game with cardboard chits, no visuals, no eye grab. And we doubled our size. We more than doubled our size. Just from that, we went from 10 or 12 guys to almost 30 within the quarter after that, because a couple of them told their buddies, and so we grew. Now, that didn't mean everybody showed up at every time, but there was a time, as you look back in the history, like Gen Con in 1968 or 71, when 30 guys would have been a big meeting, because that would have been all the guys from down in Lake Geneva, Northern Illinois. Conventions were people getting together to reach out to a sound the mating call, blow the horn, who responds. And so there were lots of them, and then they aggregated. And as some of them became bigger, others said, well, I'm not going to compete to that. I don't want to. I'll go to theirs. And so, we have a lot fewer today. When I first came to Cincinnati, they had a convention going on here. And I think the second year I was here, myself and about 5 of my real good friends were kind of guiding and directing the thing. And I came in, newcomer into Cincinnati, kind of force a character and reputation, and said, all right, let's do this, let's do this for real. And we grew ours to, I think in 83, I think we had 4,000 attendees. That's people buying tickets, not gate, or any of that funny stuff. That was considered a good sized convention in the Midwest at that period of time. And we were able to do that because Ralpartha Miniatures was here. I was here with my Adventure Gaming magazine. So we had connections in the industry, and we got the Ace of Aces people to come, and we got some other people, some other companies to come. So we had a fairly respectable dealers hall. We had a huge Ace of Aces tournament that ran all weekend long. And it was a big deal. And then the Young Turks were clamoring to take over from, us old farts. They were all of 8, 10, 12 years younger than us. And so we stepped aside, and it went into the crapper for many, many years. There's fewer cons, but on the most part, they're much larger and they're much better organized. And lots of them have a dealer room, which gives you a chance maybe to see something you hadn't seen before. Oh, let's see. I got 3 more things to talk about. I saw something interesting. I can't believe this. There's something Project Wimpy 5e thing going on about revisiting monsters. And I saw one on remaking the Beholder. It's supposed to be so scary that if you had a piece of coal in your butt you were smuggling in, when you ran into this, it turned into a diamond. It's supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be bad. Of course, it has limitations. It has facing. The goddamn piece that I read got all into the blah, 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 technical stuff of miniatures and all that. No, we don't play miniatures now, do we? We're playing in our heads. We may use a hex grid simply to position relative space and position relative to the other players. It's supposed to be bad. It's supposed to be scary. And we're supposed to have enough smarts to picture in our head what's going on around us and how that thing's floating there. And, it can only see, probably 130 degrees in front of it at any given time. It's a big damn eyeball and it's gone vex. So it's got a big range of vision and it's magic. So anyway, I can only imagine what my old buddy Terry Coons, who invented the Beholder, will say about this when he hears about it. I imagine one of his first thoughts will be, who the hell do they think they are? If it's too tough for you, too bad. But hey, I'm a nice guy sometimes. And I wouldn't want to, I'm not going to stir Terry up. Somebody else can. Oh, let's see. What do we want to talk about next? Okay. I've been accused. I imagine it's fairly humorous, but I've been accused of making up words. No, but I'll plead guilty to making you go to your dictionary. And sometimes it might be on purpose and sometimes it's not. Now, Gary and I used to do that on purpose. Gary Gygax and I would make sure that in anything we were writing, there were probably 2 or 3 words that most people were going to have to go look up. It was our little, orneriness, our snarkiness. And I think it also fulfilled that urge in me that it led me to become a teacher later. The whole thing that drove me into journalism is I like to tell people things. It's just something I've always liked to do. I've always liked to be the one that had the new family news to tell to a family member that didn't know it, or I've just always liked it. I worked on, in college I worked on magazines and newspapers and what have you. So it was a natural thing. And with Dragon, I was telling people about good things. I didn't waste time telling them about bad things or what I thought was bad. So I used to do that. I have an extremely extensive vocabulary. I don't say this to boast. Every vocabulary test I've ever had has rated me extremely high. Probably because of the fact that I am an incredibly voracious reader. Constantly, every day, every week, every month, I read. I used to tell my students that time spent reading can never be truly wasted. I don't care if you're reading romance novels or how to fix your carburetor. Well, fuel injection nowadays, I don't want to date myself. And so I read a lot. And I've always, the writer in me always searches for the best word with the most nuance as the writer understands it. So no, I don't make them up. But I enjoy using them. English is an amazing language. Anybody else has got a word we like, we take it. Don't have a word exactly, we make it up. Love it. I don't have to make them up. Let's see. Okay. I've been saving this one. I'm going to preface this. This is not meant necessarily as a condemnation. This is meant as I simply do not understand the topic. Having said that, weaseled as much as I can, I saw a thread from a person. And again, I'm not making fun of anyone. I'm simply stating the fact that I can't wrap my head around this issue. It's kind of like the way I played basketball growing up and the way the game is played now is two different games. The person said they were starting a new campaign, 5e, with a bunch of friends, and I know 5e is much easier to get into. And she polled her characters about the possibilities of their dying. And most of them, no, I don't want to die. I just want to have endless adventures and fun. I had a sound effects machine that'd be doing that. Without the threat of harm, and dying is extreme harm, without the threat of harm, where's the spice in playing? Are they all going to be min-maxers? Munchkins? I don't want to die. So the question then went, well, as a DM, of course they should be able to. How do I deal with this? How and it went on from there. And first off, I got to get back to what I called them earlier on, snowflakes. I didn't ever think there'd be a snowflake role player, but I guess there are. If they don't want to have their characters die. Oh. Where's the threat? Threat involves thrills. Adrenaline is a drug. Ask anybody. Ask any combat vet. Ask anybody that worked on a flight deck. Ask anybody who's done dangerous construction, blasting. Adrenaline is a drug. If you want to be a fantasy person, how far from reality are you going to divorce yourself to say that it's fantasy? You can never be killed? Well, Jesus, how boring is that? That reminds me, I just thought of this, of Doom. Now, back when I was playing Doom on a 3.5-inch disc, I downloaded, and it probably took, pardon me, it probably took all night back then with the dial-up modems. I downloaded something that I never ran out of bullets and I couldn't be killed. And there were bad nights when I'd come home from work and I just felt like killing shit. And so I go down, I put it into that mode and I just blow up monsters and they turn into Barneys and for 5 or 10 minutes till I let all the steam off. Would I do that all the time? No. How boring is that? Here you are, trapped on a peak, winds howling around your ears, ice crystals slashing your face, a ravening pack of 317 wolfoids circling the base of the peak that you're on. And you don't worry about dying. You lose an arm. Bit right off. And you don't worry about dying. If that's the case, seriously, go try one of the post-apocalyptic games. You might find that more enjoying. because there's more legitimate reasons you can become invulnerable over there in that mindset. You know, it's I really can't wrap my head around why you would do this. You know, that's like sitting down and playing a 6-hour board game that you can't lose. Totally foreign strain of gamer there. You've got to. That's what I really hated about 4 and those 3s. They're writing adventures that you couldn't kill some clown in the first part of the adventure because he had to be alive later for the third part of the adventure and give you the only clue that would get you out of the mess you were in. What kind of crap's that? Snowflakes. There's so many of them today. So many of them. I guess I grew up a hailstone. We were a hell of a lot tougher, and enough of us together, we got things done and changed. All right. Now I'm going to talk about one more thing tonight. And it's a game that some of us have participated in, some of us may be fans of, some of us were fans of. Nothing we have to do with. But I am completely gobsmacked by the recent decision of the National Football League concerning commanding that the players perform a certain set of behaviors during the playing of the national anthem. All started, as we all know, when Corey Kaepernick took a knee in favor of the Black Lives Matter and that. I'm willing to bet that there's several millions of veterans just like myself who gave anywhere from 2 to 35 years a blank check to the U.S. government, and we said, here's our life for the next X number of years. You can kill us or wound us or maim us. We hope that doesn't happen, but here it is. And why did we do that? We did that to protect our rights. And the most important right is free speech. The most important right is free speech. The NFL's crying about their losing revenue. And maybe, I've seen varying studies, various opinions, maybe people are saying, no, I don't go because I don't believe in this kneeling in the anthem thing. That's un-American. Trump has said that, gee, maybe they shouldn't be in America. Of course, we're drilling with maybe a 7th grader, 8th grader here. Anyway, free speech. That's one of the many rights that we gave that check to the government for, on your behalf and on our behalf. And I don't like to see anything that coerces free speech. Everybody has the right to protest. I'm not getting into this crap about they're under the employment of their, et cetera, et cetera. Unless it specifically states in a contract signed between the players and the Owners Association. There's no compulsion there. Now, there's talk that maybe they'll follow the NBA's lead and put that into their next collective bargaining agreement. Well, yeah, the NBA did it. And when they did it, they said, yeah, we'll do that. Give us more money not to do that or to do that. Okay? NFL, this is really, really, really stupid. You don't suppose that $85 seats in the nosebleeds where you have to watch out for pigeons landing on your hat is anything to do with people not going. You don't think that $12 beers is any reason why fewer people are going. You don't think that you're losing revenue because you've priced your souvenirs so ridiculously high that people say, I'd like to, but I just can't do that. You don't think it has anything to do with the fact that you lied all those years about concussions. You don't think there's any corollary between the fact that whole lots fewer children are being signed up for football in the last 3 years? Young children. I am so glad, and my son is now too, that I would not let him play football before he was 12. By that time, he was a good soccer player and lost his interest even fooling with it. I don't think any child below the age of 12 should play football till they come up with a helmet that's like a big giant bubble that absolutely nothing can happen to that head, which is impossible, as we know, because you can't stop the brain from sloshing around in there when there's a sudden direction change. No, I don't suppose the NFL owners thought anything like that. I grew up following the first 6 teams. Okay, that's how long I go back to football. I was a Bears fan. You grew up in Illinois, you rooted for the Bears. The Bears. As I aged, matured, my sympathies followed. I was a rabid football fan during the period of the Steelers' dominance when they were winning all those rings. Because 2 years before they started winning rings, Dick Butkus was being interviewed. And they asked him, who's the toughest team you play? And he said the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I go, well, they never win the league. He says, no, but look at the injury list every Monday morning after you play them. He said he'd rather play any team in a gravel pit than the Steelers. And then the next year they signed Terry Bradshaw, and they made fun about him. He couldn't spell cat, et cetera, et cetera. And then he shoved the ball up their collective ass. And, and when I lived in Wisconsin at TSR, nobody knew I was a Steelers fan. Nobody. And then I moved to Cincinnati. And I'd always followed Kenny Anderson because he went to tiny Augustana College, where I grew up. And so I started following him. And I went to the Freezer Bowl shortly after I got here. And I've given up. I don't follow football anymore, really. Partially because the Bengals suck. And partially because after my surgery 2 years ago, I was told that for at least 6 weeks, I couldn't do or watch anything that was liable to spike my blood pressure and blow out stitches and stuff. So I gave up football. I gave up it was the baseball playoffs and it was football season. And I gave up those two and became a soccer watcher and never looked back. So, gee, NFL, there's so many reasons that I quit watching you. Corey Kopernick was one of the few reasons that I paid any attention to you. So that's my rant for the night. I'm going to do another one of these, and I'm going to skip a week when I go to Texas. And when I come back from Texas, I'll tell you all about it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be running a game that I guess I ran the very first Texas Con 10 years ago. Well, actually, it's the North Texas RPG Con. There's another con called Texas Con. Called The Curse of the Weaver Queen. Now, as fate would have it, I just signed a deal with some people in Brazil to translate The Curse of the Weaver Queen into Portuguese. So, oddly enough, how these things, the stars line up, whatever. So we're going to be playing that. And we're going to be playing My Wheel of Blame, which is just nothing but nonstop laughs and numerous ways for me to humiliate the players. And then I'm going to be running my dirt track Saturday night. And I'm going to infect the people in Texas with that crazy racing game. Now, I hope you all have a good holiday weekend. I'm going to do research on Dirt Track Saturday night. On Monday, I'm going to Lawrenceburg, Indiana, to the Lawrenceburg Speedway. Little tiny, like a chili bowl, racing in a big dirt chili bowl. It's probably like, oh man, I don't even know if it's a quarter of a mile. Might be 2/10. And the World of Outlaws is coming. Those are the big wing sprints with the 700 horsepower motors. So I'm calling it research and thinking about writing off the cost of the tickets on my taxes next year. Hope you all have a great weekend too.